I think
LSD.
what I've seen, psilocybin makes sense to me in terms of the neuroregenerative properties that we know of it, and also just how physiologically safe it is and all of that. So I do think there is a role that microdosing can play as a bridge therapy.
It's also nice because psilocybin it's a mushroom, so it's presumably easier to access. And then B, compared to LSD, the volume of it is, for you to accidentally take twice of a microdose, like it's not going to be a big deal for psilocybin. But if LSD, like you can't even tell the difference. It's measured in microns. So the difference
Micrograms,
micrograms, yeah. So the difference between like a big dose and a microdose is like you couldn't even be able to tell the difference by looking at them. Whereas like a big dose of mushrooms, you're like, oh my God, how am I going to eat all that? That's like a lot of mushrooms.
Yeah, it's definitely harder to overdose with mushrooms.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'd be curious to see. I guess difficult to study, but there's probably so much anecdotal evidence. And ultimately, it's nice to have a scientific researcher to go and do that process. But really, people just want to know, like, okay, realistically, what are the risks here?
I'm a big proponent of being your own scientist, and you are an N of one experiment. You arm yourself with the knowledge to proceed safely, and then give it a try.
Yeah, and microdosing psilocybin is pretty low risk. I mean, is there any side effect for anybody taking?
Yeah, to have full informed consent with microdosing, it would just be like, could you experience headache, agitation, irritability, maybe some. And I say if you are experiencing that, you probably are taking too high of a dose. Yeah. And so it's supposed to be a so-called subperceptual. You don't have any overt visual changes or, super increased emotionality or anything like that. It's just like a very subtle background lifting.
Yeah, that's a big misconception, I think. Like microdosing, I'm like, it's like 2 drinks or 1 drink of alcohol equivalent. We're like, I'm a little buzzed, but
no, exactly. Yeah, and we could do a whole episode on microdosing. There's so much miseducation around that, and like I just had to a comment on one of my YouTube videos about, I took 1 gram of mushrooms 4 days in a row, and I was like,
that's not
way too much, buddy. Like, and I can't give advice over the internet, but I'm like, just go watch my microdosing video and educate yourself before you just. It's kind of like our friend. I won't mention exactly who it was, but we were having a dinner conversation, and they just are just trying psychedelics without any. Without any enough education, and so you accidentally take too much LSD, and then you're tripping for 14 hours on a day that you didn't prepare for that. And so, I'm just like, educate yourself.
Yeah. Hence your video. Your YouTube is awesome because there's really not a lot of content out there on educational content for psychedelics. Yeah, let's peg that as the next conversation. Microdosing will be fun. Anything else on SSRIs here you think are important to put out there? We talked about the research on the lack of effectiveness, the history, the prevalence of it, the interactions with psilocybin.
I guess I want to flesh out a little bit more the interactions with psilocybin, just because it's such a nuanced conversation and helping people in that decision-making process for themselves. So it's technically safe to take psilocybin with an SSRI. Right. There is a theoretical risk of serotonin syndrome. That was the concern, but we just aren't seeing that in practice.
What is that? What is serotonin?
It's where you have too much serotonin in your system, basically. You have a flood of serotonin, and it's quite unpleasant. It's and it could be dangerous in terms of we see it when we stack multiple serotonergic medications. It happens in a hospital setting usually. So where you're sweating and there's cardiovascular changes and stuff like that. But
that's not a real.
We don't see that. Yeah, there are people who I've given psilocybin to people who are on an SSRI. I would say that while so you can take it. Is it optimal? No, because of the blunting diminishing risk. But for certain people who want to proceed, I think it's totally safe to do it, and you can try. And there are certainly a subset of facilitators who, if you're not in a position where you are desiring and motivated and you have the circumstances to taper off of your antidepressant, then they much rather just see what kind of benefit you can get from one journey. Maybe you increase your window of tolerance. Maybe you're able to make some progress on a few areas where you felt blocked, and then go through the tapering process with the idea of maybe doing a second journey after that. I guess like my thoughts on that are, if you're not in a position in your life, you don't have the life circumstances to sustain the tapering process, you may not exactly be in the position to be taking a large dose of psilocybin because of the instability that is inherent in the process. It's a good instability that you introduce into your life. You're feeling stuck, so it's like that's the entropic brain theory. You increase some entropy into the system, some increased flexibility in the system so that you can rewire. You're actually moldable in that way. Like you can rewire things that increase neuroplasticity. And so you want relatively stable life circumstances in order to move through that process safely. And I also, another thing that has influenced my thinking on this is that it was a microdosing webinar that Robin Carr Harris was helping to teach and speak in, and we came to the topic of taking a psychedelic, or I think it was psilocybin specifically, in conjunction with an SSRI. And they're just fundamentally different paradigms, and in fact, in some ways, conflicting paradigms. And so it doesn't quite make sense on that theoretical level to proceed that way.
Sorry, to proceed what way?
To give psilocybin while someone is taking an antidepressant. Okay. So I'll explain why. When you're taking the antidepressant, the theory is that, it's theory and the way that we understand about it too. Like, there's a lot we don't understand, but this is what we do understand. It dampens the stress response when you take an SSRI. Part of the problem is it's an inelegant solution. It dampens every response, your libido response, all of that, which is that's the unwanted side effect. And so it helps to dampen the stress response and dampen all your emotions. And so I say it's like when you feel like you're drowning, it's like strapping on a life preserver. Okay, great. You're able to you don't have to tread water anymore. You have this buoyancy that helps you stay afloat. At a certain point, when you get to a certain point in your life where you are willing to take on the deeper inner work and really explore the increased neuroplasticity and do the rewiring and all of that, participate in your integration, you have to take the life preserver off in order to dive deep. It's because I do, while we still are elucidating the exact mechanisms by which psychedelics and specifically psilocybin are therapeutic, beyond just recreational exploring consciousness experiences, but in terms of helping people who struggle with anxious and depressed symptoms, or chronic PTSD or substance abuse, that sort of thing. Part of the therapeutic experience is the increased emotionality that helps you to learn. There's an emotional intelligence process there. And so if you have the life preserver on while you take the psilocybin, you can't exactly dive as deep as you want and need in order to experience the benefits that you're ultimately seeking. And so that's sort of just the nuance that I would like to provide there. And so, Robin Carr Harris is just sharing that, he doesn't think that makes a whole lot of sense. I'm like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me either, to try to give you psilocybin while on it. Now, Can it be part of a tapering process? Can we have a psilocybin journey in the tapering process? For sure. I think, why not give that a try? As long as people understand that it's not going to be, and I think most people understand it's not silver bullet, and it's not one and done. It's just part of a new modality where rather than thinking I'm permanently, I suffer this chemical imbalance and I'm permanently sort of malformed, that it's actually, I actually sustained a series of life events, whether in my childhood or early in life, that left an imprint on me that leaves me constructing my reality to experience it in a certain way. I'm ready to interrogate those base beliefs that I developed, that conditioning and the patterns that I developed, and shake that up a bit and intentionally rewire myself to be in a better state of well-being. And a psychedelic is a catalyst for that.